Life Audio.
So even just saying the words in the coming weeks should be like, wait a minute, how do I touch this once? You'll start changing things and find way more mental bandwidth for the things that matter rather than all these unclosed loops. Hello and welcome to the Encourager Podcast, where we have encouraging conversations to help you joyfully harmonize your home and work life. I'm your host, Rebecca Scott. I'm a wife, mother, designer, coach, and author. I'm here to help encourage and empower you to confidently make decisions that work for you and your stage of life, whatever that might be. Hello, encouragers. Today's podcast is brought to you by Just Thrive Probiotics, my go-to supplement to feel even more energized and lighter. I also love the Just Thrive Calm supplement to keep my thoughts from spinning, and it keeps me more focused and in the moment. Use code ENCOURAGER to get 15% off by going to justthrive.com, and again, use code ENCOURAGER. Okay, on today's episode, we're talking with one of our favorite frequent guests, Tiffny Hagan, also my co-coach for our awesome membership community, the Clarity Blueprint. And one subject that's come up, it comes up a lot for me because I use it literally daily, but it's also come up within our students, is your method for touch it once. So, Tiffny, welcome to the podcast again.
Hey, thank you. It's always good to be here.
Yes. Okay, update us a little bit on your background and your life right now, because our students know, and I obviously know, but tell our listeners who you are, what you do, where the family is right now, and then we'll talk about our touch it once.
Yeah, so I am celebrating 22 years of Virtual Office Advantage. So we help small businesses and nonprofit associations with their administrative needs. And my kiddos, man, I just had one graduate from college and The other one is a freshman in college. I don't know where the time goes, but yeah.
I don't either. It's so fast. It's so fast. I remember when they were still tiny and we were trying to figure out how to vacuum around doing work.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Totally get it. Yes. And so 22 years is a big deal. 22 years is a big deal. And I'd also like to tell them a little bit of your background too, just for you, because when you're in it. Sue, she's like my most organized friend as far as like taking big ideas and breaking them down into steps and then making it happen. So you have quite a few success stories. So I encourage you to listen to any of our podcast episodes with Tiffny. We've got to be up to like 4 or 5 now. And your approach is always just so doable. So I love that you're as practical, which is probably why we coach together, because we're both like, if we can't implement this with busy running families, I'm out. Like if this is going to require 20 hours, both of us are like, nah, we're not doing that. So if that is not enough to say that you're going to love this podcast together, you will, because one of my goals this year, and I've pretty much done this all the years I've been podcasting, is to give the listeners something that they can implement within 10 minutes of listening to the podcast. Now, we're not talking about doing it, but like mentally, they can send themselves an email to take a couple of steps. And I know you'll be able to do that with today's podcast as well. So as we have been coaching and having different subject matters in our Clarity Blueprint membership program, you guys, we still have room for students. You can still enroll. Go to theencouragerpodcast.com, click on the Clarity Blueprint tab. Okay, this will be exactly what you're hearing today. This is what Tiffany and I do every month, twice a month. Okay. So that being said, we talk frequently about the touch it once system. Tell us a little bit about where that came from. Like, when did you start this?
Yeah, I don't actually know where it came from because it isn't mine originally. Okay. I don't really know where it came from. But whoever came up with it is brilliant. I adopted it. I adopted it in my corporate days. Because, man, that seems like a lifetime ago. But in my corporate days, I always had other people in my workspace. And so I needed to be able to take those tasks that were incoming and move them quickly into a system that I could use and other people around me could use at the same time. And so when I then began my own business, had kids, all of the things, this system just became something that was supernatural. And now I've started to watch my kids adopt it too, which is kind of fun because all those years that I harped on them about, can you just like take your shoes off and put them somewhere? Do we have to take them off and throw them in the entryway and then later put them somewhere,
Yes.
So the system is super simple. It's whatever you have in the moment. If it's the thing that I really love about it is that it's applicable for your work life, for your professional, your professional life, for your home life, for your kids. Little tiny kids can adopt this. Yep. It's right now. It's nothing that you need another system for. It's right now. It can be adopted. And it's as simple as picking the thing up that's in front of you. Let's use the shoes as the example. They come off of your feet. Instead of just letting them lay there, just pick them up and put them where they go. In one movement, take them off and put them where they go. The dishes, we don't need to take the dishes off the table and put them on the counter and hope for the dishwasher later, or whoever's doing your dishes. We are just going to take them off the table and put them in the dishwasher and then run the dishwasher. It's just the continuous momentum of taking action on the task that you have in your hand at the moment. It's as simple as that.
And I love that you're saying too, it applies for both professional and personal. And obviously both these examples were more of our home life things, but it is paramount to, for me, the touch it once is already a decision. I didn't even have to think it through. Like it's made for me. I'm only going to touch this once. So it's also an easy thing to say, and training your children and sometimes your spouse that like, wait a minute, how can we just like touch this once? And it also points out the areas in our life that don't have homes. And I'm using quotations here, but you know what I mean? Like if they take off their shoes and then they're like, shoot, I don't know where these shoes go. Then there's a moment where you say, they go right here, like look at the mat or whatever. Or you can say, oh, actually, I don't have a space for where your report cards go. We need a home. We need a system around this. And we all know how I love systems. So this one is just so simplified, but is the perfect one to start with.
It is. And to piggyback off of that, it shows up what systems that you might not have in place. And it maybe shows the systems that you have in place that maybe you aren't using. Like you and I talk a lot about time blocking. We talk about that a lot. So to put it in perspective for your professional life, I talk a lot about, the email system. If you're not going to respond to your emails right now, then don't check them.
Okay, I think you need to repeat that because it actually is a big bomb and it gives us permission. So repeat that alone.
If you're not going to take action on your email, don't bother checking it.
So when you're sitting on the bleachers, and you have 10 minutes between games, if you can't respond to the emails, Tiffany says, don't check them.
No, just be present in the moment. Because email, and we've talked about this a lot, of email is just somebody else's demand on your time. Not necessarily in a bad way. It's just their demand on your time. They need something from you. So when the ball is in your court with that email, you get to choose when you respond to it.
Yes.
But going back to the email example, if you have a time block for when you actually check your email, then your email can very easily flow into the touch it once system. It's time to check emails. You open them up, you respond, it's off. You open it up, you respond, it's off. Or you take action in whatever way that you need to.
And the problem would be, like, let's say you don't do this and you go ahead and check your email, which is common. You guys, you check your email in between stops or whatever, just to like see what's in there. So you've touched it once and then you couldn't respond because you're like, oh, I can't really attach that, or it's a little bit more difficult for my phone. So I'm going to do that later. So you're going to touch it later. And then later you're like, gosh, I'm too exhausted. I'm just going to mark it unread again, or I'm going to start. So then you've touched it a third time. And then the next day it gets buried. It just goes on and on. So you're touching it 7 or 8 times physically, if you will, but mentally you have touched that same thing 10 times. Right. So there's no closed loop of this. In this case, this email task is just being touched mentally so many times. So the concept can also apply to physically and mentally, how you're touching it once and taking action.
Because there's all of that chaos, right? We do this a lot, like the visual chaos, the mental chaos, and it loops itself into anxiety a lot of times. Because your mind is in so many different places because you have to remember, oh yeah, I picked up the mail and where did I put it? Oh geez, where did I put it? I can't remember where I put the mail. I can't remember where I put that thing. And so that's where your systems come into place. Or I've opened the email. Did I respond to them? I can't remember if I responded to them. I can't remember where that task is at. Where did I put that task? I know I picked it up. What did I do with it? So there's a lot to be said for, yes, systems come into place of where do you put the task once you pick it up and touch it. But a lot of it is, it just alleviates that stress and that anxiety that comes from all of the things that we get in our life. Most of it is paper, but a lot of it is, other things that come into our day.
Oh gosh. So already like we're understanding the concept is to make the decision right then and there that you are going to touch it once, whether that's professionally or personally. And it's so important because, like we just talked about, the mental bandwidth that it is taking up and the physical bandwidth when you're touching something 3 or 4 times. It also is kind of like touching the snooze button, and I am guilty of this 3 or 4 times. It's the same thing. Like you have to make the decision. And because I've been using the Touch It Once system, which I learned from Tiffany in her program, it's got to be, we're probably going on 12 years now, at least 12 years, because I started it before Roz. We might have been even using it for 15 years now. And I would like to remind all of our audience, I have a full plate and I love it. I run 3 different brands. We farm and ranch. My husband has a construction business, and I do not have paper piles in my house. Now, the area that gets the messiest in my house that we don't touch it once, so listening to this, I'm like, ooh, we got to improve that, is our shoes, because the sheer amount of muck boots versus cowboy boots versus school shoes, we've got some systems that we need to work there. But as far as when I don't stress out when people come to the studio, like whether they're working for me, it's a stop from a customer, because my desk is clean. Like I have made decisions of where the paper is going. And I have a really clear story of like, I need help of when I got the Touch It Once paper system is because I took the wrong kid to a doctor's appointment. I got everybody up early and I'm like, okay, guys, we're going to so-and-so's doctor's appointment. Okay. And they were little. It was like everybody was 6 and under. Did I have everybody at 6 and under? Anyways, there was a lot of kids and we were young, and I got them there, and one kid had prepped the other kid for shots, and, it was all like, heh, 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 heh. We got to the appointment and the doctor called for us and called for the other kiddo. And so the one that was being all smirk about it and everything is the one that had to get the shots. And the reason I tell that story is because I was trying to figure out, how do I manage like family medical stuff and my family like paper that's coming in, because the reminders were there, the emails were there, this is not a clinic problem. And then like the sheer amount of paperwork coming in from running my businesses. And so I was like, so there I was taking the wrong kid to the appointment. Thank the Lord I had all of them with me. But I walked out of that going, I don't want to be that. I don't want to do that because, and honestly, I don't know that I cared about the nurse and the doctor and what they thought, but I thought about the kiddos. Like I prepped the wrong kid. That's not fair. And so then I started adopting your Touch It Once paper system. So this doctor note from then on comes in, and I know what the date is to file it when the appointment is going to come. I file mine a couple days earlier. I highlight who the child is. So I know which one. I write it on my calendar. So I'm a big person. When I get a piece of paper, it also goes on my calendar. So my Touch It Once is calendar and file. So I guess it's 2, but not really, because I'm touching it all the same. Those are married together. I don't like file it and then later put it on the calendar. I do them together because I'm only going to touch this piece of paper once. And I am proud to announce no kid has gotten shots that doesn't need them since then. But that was my clearest example, and after that I was like, I have to figure out how to do this even better, because I was starting to use some of my own systems, but it was the paper that was piling up. And I was like, I don't know how to manage this part. So that's just my very clear example of the Touch It Once. Tiffany, how do you go about applying this daily still after this many years of practicing it yourself?
Yeah, in my professional life, so I also have another system, the Piles to File system, my filing system. When paper comes into my office, it has a place that it goes, and it either goes into the filing system on the day that I'm going to work on it. It goes into the trash or the, recycling, or I take action on it right then. And then it gets put in its place. Because I also have, things have gotten better, but I've learned over the course of 20 years with my kids, of 2 kids and a couple of brands. And it's a lot. It's a lot of paper and just dates and all of that you don't want to miss, and prep work for the things, right? I don't just jump on a call with you. There's some prep work that goes into it. So it's learning those systems, but a lot of it is touching things once. And like you said, it's married either with putting it in my Piles to File system, or it's put in my calendar, or it's thrown away.
So the question that will start the system, because I mean, guys, it's just asking every time you're handling anything in your inbox or in your hand, how can you touch this once? What is the next step to put this in? All right. So let's give our listeners a couple of examples here. Let's talk about mail. Like, let's say we don't have these systems set up just yet. So how would we touch it once for our mail in particular?
Yeah. Okay. So this is how I work my mail. When the mail comes into our house, it doesn't just get put on the counter. So when the mail comes into our house,
because right there, guys, we're going to tell you how to do it.
Right. So the thought process with me is I can either procrastinate and put it down on the counter. And then what happens when we procrastinate? It becomes a habit, right? So day after day, the mail goes and then it's a pile. It's about a choice. So a really easy way to start is get the mail. And I'm really getting into this habit of standing in my garage when I get the mail, and it either goes into the garbage or it comes in the house with me. So all of the, the ads that we get and the, things that don't actually need to have any action taken on them either get put in the shred or the garbage. And the pieces that do need to have action come in the house with me, and there's a place on my desk that it goes. So automatically I've made the choice to bypass the counter where everything in the world gets dropped, right?
Yes.
And it has a designated place that it goes. But I've already taken action on getting rid of all of the things that I don't need to take action on, because it's just going to go back into the garbage, right? If you just set it in a pile, a lot of it's going to get put into the trash anyway. So that's a really easy place to start.
So you have a shredder in your garage?
I have a shred box. Yep.
Okay, so it's a box. You're not necessarily shredding it right there, but it's in the box to shred it later.
Yeah. Just because the amount of paper that comes into my house for client mail and, all of that, it makes it easier to either pitch it in the garbage or put it in the shred box. And then whatever comes into the house is actually what I take action on.
So then when you come into the house, you grab, like, if it's a bill and you put it in your bill folder, or if it's a calendar reminder, a birthday party, you put it in your piles to files. Guys, we will also put in our show notes links to take Tiffany's Piles to Files course. You will love it. You'll be able to implement it immediately. That's the next system that I've used for 15 years as well. Okay, also, do you check your mail then at a certain time when you'll be able to touch it once and implement it? Because it's like, if your car is full of, like, we live out in the country, so our car, when we go into town and come home, it's full of stuff, like we grabbed whatever and that. So I would not check my mail then because I'm already handling all the other stuff I'm trying to touch once. So do you have a certain time of day that you've blocked? You're like, here's where I check my mail because I can take action on it?
Usually our mail doesn't come until the end of the day, like late in the day. So it's either like Tim's coming home from work, he'll drive by, I'll pick up the mail and then bring it in the house, or, do the thing out in the garage. Or if I see the mail lady come, I'll walk out and get the mail. But, oftentimes he's the same way. He'll have his lunchbox with him and he'll have his, all the papers from work and whatever. And then so I leave his stuff to him, and then I'll just kind of go through the mail real quick and then do what I need to do with it. So it either goes into the bill folder or it goes into the Piles to Files system or trash.
Yes. Okay, and I got to be honest here, you guys, because it's all I know how to do with you guys. I hate it when Nick checks the mail. Don't touch the mail.
Oh, me too.
He's like, and then I feel terrible because now he's like, can I just check this one? It's addressed to me. I'm like, yes, honey. I'm so sorry, but keep it in that area, because we don't actually check our mail because I see my mailman every day because of our packages, because I'm retail. So they come and they pick up the amazing design your own purses, a little plug there. And then, so I see him. So ours actually does go on a countertop first, but then when I check it, I have blocked in the 10, 15 minutes to sort garbage or calendars or, wherever it's going to go. And then I put it in my piles to files. But if someone tries to open the mail right there, I mean, it's kind of like taking mommy's sewing scissors. The cops are called. Like, don't you dare check the mail without me standing there because I needed to go in this area.
Yes,
so I don't know if that's permission to like be okay with a mail hoarder. If that's your particular domain, it's okay to tell them like, I really have a system for this. And my husband's very kind about it now. But at first he was like, geez, I'm like, but I can't risk that you open it and put it somewhere else. He's like, fair. I'm like, okay.
Oh, Tim is
talking it through.
Tim is a huge one of picking up the mail and then opening it in the car and then leaving it in the car. And it makes me crazy because then, okay, what the heck? You know, you get in the car and there's the mail all over the front seat.
And what we're also saying is it may take a while to love and train your wonderful human beings in your life to like, hey, can you just respect this one? It really works. And they do. Yes. I mean, Nick especially too does appreciate that. Like, well, I don't take the wrong kid to get shots and that I don't miss things because I'm like, no. We already filed that. I know exactly where it's filed. And what's really interesting now is this is more of your piles to files. I will say, okay, I left this at home. It's in the file cabinet, second drawer. It's about a third of the way through and it's titled appointments or it's titled driver's license and marriage licenses, you know, like it, because I have a home for it and I've touched it once, I can also direct people on where to find it if I did in fact forget something. So it's so handy. Okay. How else would our listeners be applying this touch it once? What other things are we like, okay, teach us how to touch it once with, how about email? How do we touch it once with email?
Let's look at email. So, what is your system? Like when you open your inbox, do you, when you're looking through your system or you're looking through your inbox, my system is generally I go through that day because I only check my email at certain times of the day. I don't.
Amen. Repeat that.
It's not. Yeah, I only check my email at certain times of the day.
Correct.
I don't check it all day long. Yep. I just check it at certain times of the day. Nope. So when I go through a block of emails, I'll just straight away highlight the ones that I want to delete and delete them. So then I'm only working with those that I need to actually take action on.
Yeah, that's my system too.
Super easy. Super easy. Yes. And it's and that is a touch at once because you're deleting what you don't need and then you're taking action on the ones that you do.
I do have one little step B on Fridays. I do go when it's just written on my agenda sheet, which is also a free resource on our encourageyourpodcast.com in the resource tab. It's called the agenda sheet. On mine on Friday, it says to delete junk mail. So not just deleting it, but I unsubscribe, which we also have a podcast on that together, Tiffany. So on Fridays, I take the extra step. Instead of just deleting them, I look at the ones and I'm like, gosh, I've been getting that for a month now. I'm going to unsubscribe because I haven't taken action on it. So I do one more step to touch it once so I don't get it again.
Good job.
Yeah.
That unsubscribe to 5 is great.
Yes,
getting rid of
that also.
Unsubscribing to 5 emails a day that you get that you don't really remember subscribing to or that you don't need to subscribe to any longer to just rid out your inbox.
So good. Okay, so now we have the ones left over that we still only want to touch at once. What do we do with those?
So it's pick your top one and open it up and take action on it. We're not going to open it up, read it, and then close it and move on to the next one. We're going to open it up. We're going to take action on it. And if the action is a reminder, maybe it's someone that is saying like, okay, I did get your email and I am going to respond, but I need to get in touch with these 2 other people first as a resource. Okay, I will close it and I'll flag it so that I'll remember to go back to it later. But at least I've taken action on it. There's nothing more I can do, but I did read it. I know what the email says. And then I'll go on to the next one and then take action on it. And I was going to say also by only checking email a couple of times a day, it really blocks in that action. Yeah. And I don't know how else to say that. It blocks it in more. So you're only taking action a couple of times a day rather than stopping what you're doing to check an email that may or may not really be important or need to have any action taken on it.
And I also work with quite a few people and I work with contractors with my sewing business. So let's say they're like, hey, can I get to 30-inch tobacco zippers and brown elbows? So that if I try to check that when I'm anywhere else other than the email zone, and that takes me away from email if I were to like meet that demand right there because that request is not on my computer. I can't pick the zippers from my computer. So what I do is write a sticky note of the supply list, because this is a common thing with my contractors. And then at the end of checking email, I gather the supplies to get to them. I also have sort of I don't know if it would be a step B, but it's just permission out there for those of you that love paper. And I do love reminders. I always tell my staff, like, I'm never offended by a reminder. You can tell me 6 times. I will never be like, I know, I'll never do that. I'll be like, thank you every time. Thank you. So it's a good phrase to use with your friends and family too. If you're nervous Nelly about things, just tell them, like, I'm never offended by a reminder ever. Not even from my mother. I'm like, tell me 1,000 times where I need to be and what, just so that we're on the same page. When I have something in email that I can't necessarily act upon, where it's something they say, hey, I want you to just think about this. Rather than just leaving it in my email box, I do actually have it goes down to my second half, and you guys have to listen to our podcast together about Tiffany gives us permission not to have a 0 inbox. So mine would not, it would still go below. I haven't responded to it, but my step B is I print it. I print it out, and then I put a sticky note on it that says follow up. And then I file it in my piles of files. And then in a couple days or a couple weeks, whenever it was appropriate for what the email was calling for, I do follow up. So I have 2 gentle reminders right there. It's like I have it in my email. So this might be redundant for some of you. If you're like, Becca, don't. But if you're like, oh, there would be 2 reminders, that's what I need. So I have a paper version, and I pull that out on that day. And then I'm like, yep, I'm going to respond to that. And it just relaxes me so much to have my paper.
But there is something to be said for, like, that comfort of paper.
Yes.
As long as you know when you're done with that comfort of paper that it's got somewhere to go, like,
true.
Okay, here's my reminder. And once that date is come and gone, ta-da! I'm not just going to put it in a pile. Right. I'm going to,
oh my gosh, no.
Get rid of it. Yeah.
No, my favorite, I always say when I'm organizing, my favorite pile is trash because it's just done. It's done. Yes. Once it gets to that trash bin, it's out of your brain. It's done. Yes. So it's true though. We should have a closed loop for that. Like, you don't hold on to it then. If the reminder and the follow-up has been made, there is that. I also think by doing the touch it once system with our email, that it allows, again, for more mental bandwidth to have closed loops because you're touching it once. And it allows not to have email conversations that are like text messages.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because it can be that little ping back and forth. Like if you're checking your email 6 times a day, and they're checking their email 6 times a day, then you just have these one answer things. So when I've learned to like block my email times in, I have a more comprehensive email so that they know the next action to take and I know the next action to take, and we're not pinging back and forth. Is that what you found with it as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because the whole pinging back and forth is crazy, because you do have some people that are very good at that pinging back and forth because they're on their email a lot. But then you have others who just aren't. And then you have a dead end conversation almost. And so if you can have a more comprehensive email the first time out of the block, it
by
helps
telling yourself you're going to touch this once,
right?
Then you actually make bigger, more thorough steps than that pinging and back and forth.
Right.
Oh, I love it. Okay, you guys, we've been talking about the touch it once system. Think about applying this to both your professional life, whether it's email or projects or whatever that looks like, and then also your personal life. Where do the shoes go? How are you going to do the dishes? And I would encourage you to have this conversation with your family. It's like, hey, I just listened to this podcast, and it's about touch it once. What do you think in our home that we could make a better system around just touching it once? And like for us, it's the hair bin in the morning. Like they get their hair bin out and then they do their hair. And I'm like, can you please put the hair bin back where it like please put it back in its home so that you're only touching it once. I'm so curious. You guys head over to our Facebook community page as well. I'd love to hear like how you're applying it, because we all need ideas of like, wait a minute, I do touch this 3 or 4 times. So even just saying the words in the coming weeks should be like, wait a minute, how do I touch this once? You'll start changing things and find way more mental bandwidth for the things that matter rather than all these unclosed loops. Tiffany, how would you encourage our listeners?
I would encourage you to do what you're saying, is to do a mental tally of how many times am I actually touching this? How many times, and what is it doing for me? What does it do for me to move this piece of paper from point A to B to C to D before I take action on it, versus if I just have this piece of paper and I take action on it? Just even do a little challenge with yourself. I know that I am super detail oriented, but it doesn't mean that it's for the non-creatives. I mean, this is for everybody. This is for everyone. Yes. It keeps you organized. It stops the anxiety. It reduces your stress. For those with, maybe a little ADHD, it helps with that. I've picked it up. I've accomplished something. I picked it up. I put it where it went. I picked it up. I put it where it went. And it just helps with your whole, that calming process.
Yep. Yep. Touch it once. It's just a beautiful, simple concept. Okay. We can't wait to see how you guys are applying this. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, Tiffany. Until next time, encouragers, we got this because he's got us. Thanks so much for tuning in. If the Encourager podcast has helped or encouraged you in any way, please subscribe to the show and leave a 5-star review. And then help us spread the message of encouragement and hope by sharing the podcast with others. Ready to bring more organization and joy into your life? The Encourager Academy helps you harmonize your home and work life through our online course and coaching programs. Our 5-system approach, me, food, family, work, and home, tackles your biggest obstacles, offering lifetime access to video lessons and guided worksheets. Learn at your own pace with practical tools and strategies. Enroll now at encourageracademy.com and use code WeGotThis for $50 off. Are you ready for clarity and purposeful progress without the overwhelm? Join the Clarity Blueprint membership community. Transform your life with like-minded women, taking small, meaningful steps twice a month. Access monthly calls, worksheets, videos, guest speakers, and a supportive community with a very affordable price. Say goodbye to chaos and hello to purposeful progress. Visit theencouragerpodcast.com and join today.
Hello, Quinice Petway here, co-host of the Your Daily Bible Verse podcast. Are you someone who loves to take a deep dive into God's Word, one verse at a time, to explore His will for your life and desire to draw closer to Him? If that sounds like you, I'd love to invite you to head over to lifeaudio.com and search Your Daily Bible Verse to tune in and subscribe for daily inspiration, life application, and spiritual transformation through the in-depth exploration of God's Word.